Welcome to part two. We're excited you're here to continue the conversation with us. Let's dive right in and pick up where we left off.
Can you tell us maybe a little bit about that moment when you were doing that first experiment and you were going out like, wow, it works. Like we're onto something.
Um, that's it's hard to again identify one moment. I would say one thing is probably when making this paper about pruning, we had to study a lot of literature around it and think, okay, what is possible? And when you read these papers, you realize that 99% of a lot of models is useless to get good predictions. So when you realize this, you can really think, okay, we are on something important here, because you can just reduce the model size by a lot and save a lot of compute, a lot of energy. So this was a huge moment, even though maybe pruning is not the only way to make model more efficient. And there are like many methods for each method. I think at some point realize, okay, that's good. Now we see really like the benefit of this method for this model. That's really great.
Wow, that sounds really awesome. So then you've seen all that. Did you develop some kind of MVP to test it in the field the first time, or what was the process after that?
Yes. So the MVP was really to just try like to build like a first package or software or engine that just take an input as input one model and returns as a compressed model as an output, and then trying to see if we can scale this to a lot of models to see if we can adapt to a lot of models, because we know when we will get to our customers that they might have like slightly different models, and so our software needs to be able to adapt. So one way to test it is there is one important company in AI, which is Hugging Face, which collects a lot of machine learning models. I think now there is 1 million models probably on their platform. And one way to test our MVP is simply, okay, we take it and we take all the models on Hugging Face and start to compress them one after the other. And we learned a lot based on this, because a lot of technical challenges, a lot of things sometimes didn't work, but also at some point realized, okay, actually we managed to compress a lot of models pretty quickly. We compressed, thousands of models, and it was really, really cool.
To all of the listeners out there who are not that technical yet, like Hugging Face is really a legendary player within the AI ecosystem, right? Because they're open source. They're platform for open sourcing, probably, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's, I would say, the platform. If you have a model, for example, DeepSeek model, this is on Hugging Face. People can download for free on Hugging Face. And so this is exactly why we took the model from Hugging Face and put the model back on Hugging Face to see how we can scale things and share to the community what we have to do, and see what are the feedback from people if they are interested or not.
I've read that PrunaAI is implemented by only writing 2 lines of code, right?
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit what's under the hood? Like I think it enables 4 to 10x model compression, right? If we go a little bit into the details, what's under the hood? What's happening for someone that is not technical? Like adding 2 lines of code is pretty straightforward, right? But what happens?
Yes, that's a very good point. So at the beginning, it was really just 2 lines of code. Now, if you want to play a bit more with it, you can add, up to, let's say, 10 lines of code, and you should be good to play with everything. And what happens is, like, of course, behind there is a lot of lines of code. So I have to say it because sometimes people think, how do you make with 2 lines of code? No, there is some code behind that is code, but I have to make that clear.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about.
Exactly. So all these line of code, what they do, there are a lot of compression methods and a lot of family of compression methods. One of them is called quantization. One of them is called pruning. One of them is called, compilation, caching, many others. And in each of them, there are many, many compression methods. A lot of papers come every week for each with new methods. So what we do is we just collecting the most interesting methods from each family, and then see how we can combine them together to get the best efficiency gains. A lot of people, what they do, they just use a single compression method. So they use, compilation methods and they apply it. Sometimes it's even hard for them to produce it because it's a lot of setup and so on. So what we do at Pruna is we kind of have this all these compression methods ready and easy to use. So you don't have to spend a lot of time and you can combine them to get even better efficiency gains. So this is kind of what is done behind the code. So a lot of compression methods implemented and which are implemented in a nice way so that they can be combined together.
That sounds really, really nice. Like as an AI developer, I think that helps a lot and makes it a lot faster, right? And you can focus on what's really important. It saves you a lot of time.
Yes. One story I can say is when discussing a bit with customers, sometimes they want to spend like a full quarter just working on compressing their models. And of course, this is a lot of time. So in terms of productivity, it's not super efficient. What we offer them is really like a few lines of code that you can install very easily. And you can just, as we say, smash your model. And this is done, in a day or, So this is also not only about efficiency gains, but also about productivity gains.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about AI sustainability and it's a really emerging concern. Can you maybe give us a little bit of a deeper insight on how Pruna AI's technology can also help to reduce AI's carbon footprint?
Yes, for sure. Maybe it's not clear from the start exactly how this can help for sustainability. So one thing I can mention is, for example, we mentioned this example before of generating one image with a image generation model takes a full battery of a smartphone, and it takes around let's say between 10 and 20 seconds to generate this image. What you can do is instead just make the generation faster by compressing the model. So you compress the model, and then what we do is Pruna is, for example, you can generate the same image or very similar image in less than 4 seconds, or even 1 second if you want to. And then instead of using just compute during 20 or 10 seconds, you would use compute during 4 or 1 second. So then you use the hardware way less energy to fuel the hardware, which will save a lot of energy. Here, this is just for one example, but when you scale this on millions of images, it saves like a huge amount of, energy and CO2 emissions or waters that is used to maintain all these large data centers.
That sounds so amazing. Like it's really a win-win situation. And what was the first major validation that Pruna was solving a real market need?
I think the first validation was really when we helped our first customer, basically, that was actually doing a lot of image generation. They were kind of early with a lot with in their market, and we allowed them to. One big constraint for them was to serve a lot of users that were using their web interface, and at some point, they were wondering, okay, we don't have enough money to spend on all these users, so we just took our compression methods, had them to set up to set up the compression for them, and then they really exploded after this time, where basically they had like a very important growth, being able to serve a lot of more users, and it was really like a important speed up factor for them to reliably and get better user experience also for the users. So I would say this was like a very important market validation at the start.
Wow. Also, especially like with all of these new AI applications, I think the freemium model is one of the most common ones, right? I can imagine that you'd use your compression methods to serve the free market, and if someone goes into a paid plan, you get like access to the large model that then has like the highest premium form of quality. But you can serve all of that market demand that want to try out your product with like 1/10 of the cost per customer, right?
Exactly. So that's exactly the point. So right now we try to give the opportunity to as many people as possible to try what we do, and get as many feedback for what we do. But of course, for premium customers, we have like a unique compression methods that allow them to go even at a higher scale if they want to.
That's insane. Was there ever a moment when things seemed to fall apart, like where you've had like some kind of crisis mode? And if so, how did you come over that? How did you overcome that?
I think crisis, I never had this feeling of having a crisis, but definitely there are some moments where you feel, okay, this is an important problem. We have to spend some time to think about it. For example, I don't know, setting up all the hiring process. It takes a lot of time. You need to do it very carefully because first employees, they are very important. You need to understand how you would onboard them and so on. So this takes a lot of time, and then you have to meet all these people. So when you get like hundreds of applications, you have to find the right way to not spend your time in applications that will not be successful. You have to think, how to structure it so that it's as efficient as possible. You don't spend also too much time. Unfortunately, sometimes you will have to say, no to people. That's also expected, and that's not easy from a human perspective, let's say. But also, it saves time for everyone. So that's also something maybe to keep in mind. So I think, for example, hiring process was really important and taking a lot of effort to do it properly. But I could think of many other time where we had to spend more thoughts on, for example, our fundraising, more thoughts on improving the tech, more thoughts on serving models on Hugging Face. So this is just one example among many.
And then everything comes together at the peak times and everything goes crazy, right? You have to do like 3 tasks that are similarly important at the same time.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. Sometimes a lot of tasks in parallel, so you have to just make sure that nothing break, so to say. So be safe on that side. And I think it's very important to try to have like some focus time where you can just fully go in the direction of to solve one single problem, because if you just stay at the surface, then you would really not master it. So you need every time a bit of focus time to solve one problem after the other.
Of deep work.
Exactly.
Maybe like I heard that a lot. Maybe can you share us some learnings from yourself on how to access the tunnel mode? Like what do you do to go into that deep working mode? What helps?
Okay. So this is more personal. Maybe it's a more personal feeling. I think it might change from people to people, but something that works a lot for me is it's good for me to be in this deep work mode, to have not too much notifications from outside, and to be able to set up a process to get like very fast iterations. So I think iterations is very important. So for example, for when you develop something, you need to have a good small test that you can run again and again, so that you get the feeling of, does it work or not, right? So I think this is kind of important to not have too much notifications from outside at that time, and be able to iterate a lot. Another thing that helped a lot is taking time before to think about what worked and what didn't work for others. So it's really important to discuss with other entrepreneurs, discuss about recent technology and so on. And when you had time just passively to think about these things, at some point, the time will come where you will say, okay, now I know exactly what to do. I just have to execute it. So to execute it, I need this focus time, and that's it.
So cell phone in airplane mode, then spend as much time as needed on analysis, and then on execution only like, in the best case, like 10%, right?
Yes. Something I think execution is in the best case not so long, but you should not refrain yourself maybe, or at least for me, it's better to not refrain myself to start immediately to test something, right?
Yeah.
If you wait too long, then you will never do the first step, and that's not good.
That's true. Also, with other entrepreneurs, I've heard a lot about the Parkinson law, that if you set yourself a goal within a time, and the time frame is like a deadline, you're gonna achieve it until to the deadline. So some of the people I've talked to set themselves deadlines that are really, really short, and somehow it increased their productivity like crazy.
That's interesting. I never tried to do this, like to put it too short, because I feel at some point I will just not manage it. So it might be a bit disappointing. You get this feeling of not managing things, but I like the idea to put deadlines, and they have to be realistic, right? Not be
Yeah.
too.
As you said, probably it's really highly personal, right? Like everyone responds differently, and I also know that there's a lot of scientists out there that like were really lazy and like took long walks, but then there came like the spark that changed everything. Like
Yeah,
everyone is different.
exactly.
So like I've heard, like you told me before we were starting the podcast that you've raised the seeding round, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Very happy to tell about it. So we announced, I think, end of last year in December, like we raised like a 6.5 million seed round. And
Congratulations.
thanks a lot. And basically, it is with EQT, with our lead investor, but also other investors, Daphne, Kima, and Moche, that are really active in the space of AI companies. That are also, all of them are helping a lot, on bringing their network to help us to grow Pruna. And the purpose of this of raising this amount of money was, of course, twofold, I would say. But the main one is really to grow the team and get high skilled people being able with the same motivation that we have to make Pruna being better, more efficient, reach a larger market, and so on. So hiring people and skilled people was the top one priority. And the top two priority is, of course, compute, because if we develop AI, we need a lot of compute. So this is really important to have money to pay the bills at the end.
Of course, that's the huge disadvantage as a startup, right? You don't have a cloud computing cluster available just for your own models, right? You gotta pay for it.
Exactly.
So from there, like, are we from the timeline you've said that it was happening in December, right?
Yep.
So what happened the last 2 months?
What happened the last 2 months? So I think we finished to onboard like some employees. So now we are like 14 people, and so I hope that everyone. I have the feeling that everyone is happy at Puna, but also hope that this is the truth. So I get good feedback, let's say. Um, and what happened next? So we are working actually actively on bringing more compression methods into our product, because some people they ask more specifically, to get even better gains and so on. But we have also some other side projects. One thing I can say is that soon we might be able to open source a large part of Pruna, which will be a big announcement. You can expect it to be maybe in March, but I will not spoil it too much. And another thing is that we work a lot on is on the evaluation part. So being able to show people that the compressed models are more efficient, and also in terms of quality, sometimes even better than the base models that they use.
Wow, that's incredible. How would you balance an open source philosophy with building like a sustainable business model? Like you don't have to go too deep because as you just said, like we don't want to spoil too much, but maybe like I think it's like because it's a very, very a hard balance, right? Because it has different incentives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good question. So we definitely took like the right amount of time, to think about like, is that needed that we open source or not? And something I think that we had to realize is like when seeing a lot of big improvements and big news recently in AI, these were driven by open source, because AI is kind of a black box for many people. And if you also keep it closed source, it gives an additional layer, even making even more black box. So if you want to get people adopting what you do, it's important to show them a bit like how it works, what you do with models, what is the structure of the models, to show that, okay, you can trust it. It's not black magic. It's these are real code, this works, and that's the things that are important. So this is a key motivation, bringing adoption by showing people, okay, how it works and so on. Then the question is at what scale? So there are many possible ways to then create a business out of it. For example, if you check the example of Llama, they have like a specific license. If you use it more to a certain level, you can get like you would have to pay the usage of Llama and so on. So these are kind of approaches, like kind of freemium approaches that we were thinking a lot of and so on. But I can talk about it maybe later in March.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk later about it. I'm really happy if we have another podcast in a few months when stuff happened and see what the updates are.
Sure.
Also, what I wanted to say, like from how I know you now, I think that you can be really confident in open sourcing because I think you really know what you're doing and you get people to improve stuff that you've built on, which helps you also for your research. And like since you're cutting edge and you're fast, you're gonna manage to stay ahead of the curve, probably, right?
Yes, I'm pretty confident about this because I feel that we really managed to cover like the important improvements in terms of efficiency, of course. But yeah, I might be biased and don't want to say wrong things. So, but I have very good feelings about it, of course.
Nice. As a leader of a high-tech, high-growth AI startup, how do you manage the pressure that comes with it?
What brings the most pressure is probably being able to manage a lot of things in parallel. So making sure that you do not forget about important things that you should not. So this is kind of the many important things. And I think being very organized for me is really important. So having a clear view on what is coming, what has been done and so on, being a very detailed understanding of everything is really important. And what helps, of course, to reduce the stress is having a great team and great people to work with. So usually they just recall you that things that has been done, recall you things that you should do and so on. So this is a really collaborative work. And I think this is really important to have a team to reduce the stress and show that we are a team, we are together, and we are building this in a great way.
Support of the team, trust in each other, and pushing each other to work on the mission, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Speaking of mission, like we've heard about the mission already. What's the long-term vision of PrunaAI?
In one sentence, the mission is to make AI models accessible and sustainable for everyone, but also reliable. Of course, no one wants to have so there are three aspects. The first one is sustainable. I think we discussed about it. We don't want to have like AI just taking all the resources. Accessible is also very important because if you think of these largest models, you don't want just only the big tech which have money to use these models. You want that everyone can use them. That's why at Pruna, we try really to compress models in a very easy way, accessible way, without needing to have all this knowledge and so on. And reliable is also very important for us because you don't want to have negative impact with the AI you deploy. So being sure that if you put your AI model in a very hard environment, it will still behave in the right way, not have like negative impacts and so on. So these are, kind of the three pillars that drive, the mission of Pruna, to make sure to have like a very positive impact with AI. And this is definitely challenging when you see like a lot of possible misuse of it.
Yes, I see that. Like outside of PrunaAI, like what areas of AI optimization do you think still needs significant innovation? Like, are there any upcoming trends you're excited about within the domain you're working in?
So specifically optimization or AI in general?
Both, like anything you have in your mind right now.
Okay. I think there are many topics where I think this is super, super exciting. Like seeing like all the news about like new video models is very exciting. And then something that a lot of people maybe expected at some point when you will manage to generate videos, music, and I don't know, text, for example, for subtitles together and makes like, things that works together. I think these are very interesting how to combine existing techniques. I believe that a lot of generation models are good on their task alone, but when combining them, it's a real challenge. So this is definitely something that I would expect like a lot to come in the future. Maybe another thing is I might be biased because I worked a bit on this during my PhD, but a lot of things regarding molecule and protein discovery. So this is something that where AI can help a lot. We a lot of models that allows, you probably heard about like DeepMind making AlphaFold and so on.
Yeah, AlphaFold 2 is crazy.
Exactly. So these are things that are can have very huge impact, and I think very excited about them generally. I could go about specific details about mathematical models that I like, but I think it would be too detailed, so I will just not mention this.
I mean, we can talk about it if you want, of course.
I think, okay. I think I have been very interested also, kind of in, all these Bayesian models. I think Bayesian models, are
statistics for everyone who's listening and not into the details. Like you've heard of it in the maths degree, like in the university. Some courses have it.
That's I think Bayesian Bayes, the Bayes law, for everyone who knows it, is very useful, to take useful decisions and so on, and trying a way to apply the logic given by the Bayes law to AI models is very interesting. One downside, as I mentioned at some point, is that sometimes you need a lot of compute to apply it to AI models. But on the other side, it's so powerful and so elegant that I think I'm very excited about it for sure.
I can see that a lot. Even though I'm not by far not as technical as you, I've read a lot about Bayesian AI models in the recent weeks. So interesting. So you've navigated academia and startups, or you're navigating academia and startups at the same time. Is there any piece of advice you could give to researchers specifically to take a leap into entrepreneurship?
Mm-hmm. I think there might be multiple advice. I will for sure forget some, but one advice is maybe trying to find some people who did this before, because usually it helps to create confidence in starting something new, to have someone saying how he did it before you. So having examples, I don't know, I discussed with a lot of PhD students that then created startups. It does not need to be, just people you see on social media. There are like a lot of people you don't hear of, and they do a lot of great things, and that's really impressive. I can mention maybe, for example, Alexandre Oluku that created Joko, and I think he did like very great work here. So I think having examples is definitely important. And then also, I think if you taking just the time during the PhD to experiment as much as possible is very important. So maybe try to do internship in large companies and see if you feel that it will be your thing, or just check if maybe you would like to have more freedom and test your own thing. Maybe you have your own idea. This is something very, very important to take the time during the PhD to test, because if you when you are done with your PhD, you should have collected all the information to take the best decision for what to do next. So I think this is kind of one important thing to do, explore during the PhD, which is not easy for sometimes because the PhD is too short, kind of. And another kind of advice would be, I think there's a lot of help from university at TUM, for example, but also from the government and so on to start this journey. So it's very important maybe to see what is possible, to give you also like a kind of a better feeling to start in this direction. For example, we looked at different programs to get money to start and work on Pruna for a year. And with the Exist program, for example, and it was definitely important for us to take this time and fine tune a bit the product we wanted to build.
You've mentioned the Exist program. Can we maybe share with our listeners a little bit about it from a research perspective?
Yes, so Exist program, I think there are different sub-programs in it. There is like the Forschung program, which is like a research program where you can take I think maybe up to 5 years to work on a startup project, and the idea is really to transfer your research with enough time to start a project. And there is a second shorter project, shorter program, which is just 1 year where you apply. It's a document of 20 pages that you have to fill to explain what is the business idea, you have to give you the time to think a lot about everything that can go wrong and can go right in that period. And after this applying for this program, you get an answer like a couple of months after to say, okay, can you just continue and work on this during 1 year and getting a salary and some budget to try your idea. And this is kind of what proposed the exist program. So that you can build
like a spark to get everything started, right?
Exactly.
So within all of that journey, is there something you learned about yourself?
Probably many things, but at some point, when you think about it, it's hard to find one. So something I learned about myself, I really like to understand things. So sometimes it's a kind of a hard feeling to, you worked a lot on a topic and you have to leave it to someone else to work on this because you cannot work on everything together. So it's not easy to accept okay, now I will give it and this person will just continue on this project. So it's definitely not easy. And yeah, just I would say this is one important thing. Like also when learning about every new topic, you would like to just solve the problem. So you have to restrict yourself. So kind of manage to stay focused on something.
Yeah.
Even if you hear about legal things and so on, you want to understand fully, you will not have time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's about vulnerability, right? Like you have to learn to be vulnerable and to trust other persons to do the thing the same way as you would do it, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Can't do everything. That's why we build organizations, right?
Yeah, exactly. Find a good way to collaborate with people to get this trust also. Exactly as you said.
What is one valuable lesson that you've learned, like from building the startup? Maybe like before we've focused on researchers, maybe now let's focus on everybody who wants to become an entrepreneur. What do you think they should look for, like preparing for that journey?
I think one thing is they should be passionate, of course, about it. So they should really, again, explore what are the topics that are important to them, because this topic will stick with them for a long time if they start to build a startup on this topic. Mm-hmm. So this is definitely something which is important. And maybe it depends also on the personality of everyone, but I think for me it helped also to read about previous experience from people. So just reading books, just the standard Lean Startup book, I think was really helpful for me.
By Eric Ries, right?
Exactly. I think that was great for me just to understand, okay, give a lot of examples, you give like a nice methodology. It's concrete, but also there is the theoretical methodology there. So it gives you like a feeling of what will be the environment if you start to work in such a year.
Yeah, I also have the book. Like, it's a really good recommendation for everyone listening. Lean Startup by Eric Ries. It's a blue book. Some of my friends call it the Bible of entrepreneurship. Maybe that's too much, but it's great insights in there.
Yes, I think it's a great book, definitely. Yeah.
So we're almost at the end of the podcast, and in the end, we always have like a short surprise section. All right, so it's called Rapid Fire. I would ask you a short question, and you should take as little time as possible to answer. Would you be up to something for that, like that?
Yes, I will try. I don't promise that I will be good, but I will try.
Don't worry. All right. What's one AI breakthrough that could come within the next 5 years that you're excited about?
I would say this movie generation combining music, videos, subtitles, text, and so on. I could see this coming soon.
A book that really shaped your thinking?
Limits to Growth, which is the first, report explaining what are the limits of the resources that we can use to create something.
If you could collaborate with any researcher or entrepreneur, living or dead, who would it be?
I would say, a standard Albert Einstein would be very, very cool, because I don't know, he was so brilliant.
The legacy, the legacy itself, right? I'd say the same. What's your ideal way to unwind after a long day?
Running is really important. Doing just some sport, I think it's very important. Just relax.
All right, and the last one. If you could send a message to your younger self before starting Pruna AI, what would it be?
Start earlier, maybe. Just start earlier.
Nice. All right. Then thank you very much for all of the insights. I think like everyone learned a lot. Like I learned a lot, and I think the listeners and watchers learned a lot as well. It was a pleasure. It was a lot of fun. I wish you all of the luck that you can give, and I really like what you guys are doing. I think you have a bright future in front of yourself. Thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot. That was really a pleasure also to join for the podcast, and really happy to come back if you want to. And thanks a lot for making it happen.
You're happily invited, like every time. Let's do a recap in a few months. I'm really curious on what happened in between. And thanks a lot. Maybe next time we can see each other in person and go into a room and sit there for a few hours and just talk about life and technology.
Sure, sounds great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.